All right, let's say our affirmation today. I am a place of consciousness. I am courageous. I reveal clarity. I am willing to stand in the light. So consciousness draws unto itself. If you're conscious of how horrible things are, how dark it is, what isn't working, you will draw more of that to yourself to prove your premise. Just the same, if your consciousness is focused on light and positivity and solutions and love and being surrounded by that, you will draw that very experience unto yourself. Spiritual consciousness, to awaken to the oneness of your being, to awaken to your true power, to awaken to seeing this in all humanity, people, places, and things, despite the appearances, that's the real awakening, profound work. And that kind of work requires courage. Consciousness requires courage. And the reason it requires courage is because you are stepping off the hamster wheel of life. You are stepping beyond the familiar, and you're beginning to explore and know yourself in the uncharted territories of your own being. I mean, that's really what's occurring. It looks like you might be out there in the world doing this, checking that out, making this, creating that. Those are wonderful things in the world. But in back of that, what's happening is your spirit, your being is expanding. And it's growing, and you're being revealed within yourself to the powers that have always been there, but you've been using just a sliver of it. It takes courage because a lot of people aren't doing that. It takes courage because it's easier to go with the herd. It's easier to stay with the large group of people that are marching in the same direction, being told who they are, being told what to know, being told what to say, being told how to do life, and they say yes. Nothing wrong with those people. That's their incarnation. That's where they are in the evolution of consciousness. But every single person will have a moment where that will not be enough. Something within will begin tapping on your heart, and it will say to you, there's more. There's more. You are more. You are more. And the first thought is, who are you talking to? The second thought is, I'm hearing voices. Oh, God. And I say, yes. That tapping on the heart, that is your spirit. And that spirit started tapping at the right appointed time. You found your way to unity. You bumped into someone who was going to a workshop. You suddenly started reading a book that someone recommended. These synchronicities that are happening in your life is the tapping of spirit saying to you, there's more. You are more. There's more. You are more. This is what it says to you. But then you go hang out with the people who are pretty convinced that you're not much more. Right? You go hang out with the people that are pretty certain that, no, you've gone as far as you can go, my friend. And then we begin to question and grapple and struggle. And we've talked about this before because it's a very, very familiar thing. Who do you think you are, right? And when we bump up against that, then you're on the right ride. See, flip it all over. When people say, who do you think you are for being so blah, blah, blah? Yes, I'm on the right path. This is awesome. I'm beginning to find my own relationship with life. You're finding your own relationship with life will be in harmony with everybody else's. It truly will. You just are finding your own path. We all love, or shouldn't say we all, many of us know the wonderful poem by Marianne Williamson, which really speaks to this so profoundly, Our Deepest Fear. And she says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Can anyone relate to that? A little afraid of how amazing you are? It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. That line right there is what we're talking about. We have been taught to play small, fit in, look alike, do everything like everybody else. And there's a point where your spirit goes, this is not serving me, this is not serving the world. And by the way, the world that is doing this is taking more and more and more antidepressants and pills and all kinds of things to keep staying on that hamster wheel. So if we take a moment and just pause again with no judgment, we can say, that is no longer who I am. I can no longer play small. It goes on to say, next one please, there's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. And that's what we do. When you think you're fabulous on your own, when you're dancing in your bedroom, when you're singing your song to your brush, when you're just in your own fabulous self, that's real. You have no issue. But when someone comes in the room, shrink back down. What were you doing? Were you just dancing? No. Right? Looking silly. All of these things. Do you get how you have been conditioned and trained to measure yourself against the world's reaction to you? That is not the way to find God. You will not find God by playing small, by making sure you're fitting in, by seeing how other people are reacting, by watching someone roll their eyes and then making the decision that there's something wrong with you. Do you understand the rolling of their eyes is their process of beginning to become frustrated with their own playing small? Do you get that? They projected it onto you for the moment. But the only reason they're rolling their eyes is because they have not given themselves permission to listen to the tapping of spirit on their heart. And so when you are, that becomes an affront to them. And so instead of playing small, we just have to get anchored inside ourselves. And this is where the courage is activated. You don't have to be anything different in the world in that moment. But if inside yourself you can just know, I am fabulous. I am a creation of spirit. I am the magnificent life of God. And I can dance my foolish self all I want. Like nobody's looking. Well, some of you should dance like someone's looking. All right, we're all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. That's exactly, that sentence right there is what you are here to do. You were born to make manifest the glory of God within you. That's what you came to do. You came to shine that magnificent light as big and bold and powerfully as you can. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Repeat after me. I am fabulous.
I am fabulous.
Oh, that was good. I am the light and love of God. I am more brilliant than broken. I am worthy. I am worthy. I am worthy. We say these things not to make them true. We say them because they are true. This is the truth of your spirit. This is the truth of your being. And everything else is the lie. Everything else is the lie. And so here at Unity, we do what's called denials and affirmations. We deny the lie. That is not true. What is true is the spiritual nature, the presence of your being. And that's courageous. I've always been sort of courageous. I think people always tell me I'm courageous. I don't know. It doesn't feel that way. I do just feel like I'm doing me. And there are times when it does feel, I think partly because the tribe I was born into, I just didn't fit in. I didn't belong to that tribe at a very early age. And that's tough because you feel lonely and separate, like there's something wrong with you. But the gift is, some part of you goes, well, don't fit in here. Let's create a path. Let's go wherever I want to go. Like the freedom of not fitting in is pretty cool if you can get yourself to that place of freedom. I really do think still this day, I wish it weren't true, but still this day, the fact that unity churches are so small and the principles of freedom are so not yet embraced by the majority is shocking to me, which means you are on the edge. You may not know that, it may not feel that way, but again, over and over, I say to you, you could not be in this room, inside of this conversation, if you weren't a pioneer, if you didn't have some kind of courage to break the mold and explore something different. That's exciting, isn't it? Consciousness requires clarity. Consciousness requires clarity. It requires the ability to begin seeing clearly. But the problem is the seeing that we've been using is with our human eye. And that will only show to us what we are projecting out, which is lack, limitation, not enough, silly, wrong, all those things. That does not produce clarity. In fact, there's a wonderful quote from the Bible where Jesus says in Matthew, "You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye." You've probably heard this one, right? Or some version of it. I don't think I appreciate that we're all hypocrites. We're all hypocrites in the way that we don't understand that what we're pointing at that's wrong with the other person is actually inside of you. You actually do. You have no clue how many times I see, and I do it too, but when I've done counseling or working with, especially in couples, y'all are weird. The one person is just pointing at the other person. They do this and they do the blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my God, so do you. You're literally yelling at yourself. You're yelling at yourself. But we literally don't see. We are hypocrites in that moment. We cannot see that is actually what we're doing and what we're saying and what we're thinking and what we're believing. And that's what I mean by clarity. Clarity comes when you begin to go, oh, if I'm upset by that, then that must be something in me ready to be seen, transformed, prayed about, whatever it is. You begin to see clearly that the world you're looking at is your reflection. This is what is required. And until you're able to do that, the direction of spiritual counseling is don't go picking on other people's lives. Don't go judging them for what isn't working over there if you haven't yet owned that part in you that is seeing that. I think it's actually pretty magnificent work to do, but I had to go through years of getting the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment out of the way, because that's what gets triggered, right? Like if I say to you, well, that thing you're judging is so horrible out there is actually inside of you, it hits a shame button or an embarrassment button, the tail goes between the legs and away you go, right? When you get over that, which you can do in your spiritual growth, you get to a point where it's like, oh yeah, that's in me and that's in me. Wow, that's in me. Woo, that's in me. Like you just sort of, and it becomes okay because you're free of judging. Or you judge yourself for a moment, but you get right back into your center. And it just gets interesting. It just gets interesting. And the more clearly you see the reflection, the more healing becomes possible, because awareness is the first step in our transformation. To be aware of what you're looking at, to be aware of what it is. To truly see clearly, I think, is to see as God sees. And the way that I would say that and describe that, because I don't think of a being that's looking, I don't think of this white male in the sky that's seeing something. Well, I do now that I said that, and you probably do too. But the way that Spirit sees, as we all see, is that it only sees itself. And how does Spirit know itself? Only as love. How does Spirit know itself? Only as peace, and joy and possibility. So if that's all spirit is, then wouldn't it be fair and right and a proper equation to say that is all that spirit sees? Guess what? Guess what the good news is? You're spirit. Your spirit. So the revelation you're moving toward is just to see the purity of your being, not all the effed up parts. I'm not saying that that's where we stop. I'm saying we see those first. And then they begin to transform, and they begin to transform. And then you begin to see clearly because you begin to see your fabulousness. You begin to see your holiness. You begin to see the amazing being that you are. This is seeing with clarity. And when you have that clarity, no matter what's happening on there in the world, people getting in fights, this happening, people going away, people doing this, you will not be seduced. You will not be seduced by the changing tides of time. Did anyone not get the memo that here on this planet everything changes? Sometimes I wonder. Sometimes we act like we didn't get that memo, don't we? But when the tides come and the things change and then they change again, then they change again, you become stronger and stronger and stronger in your spirit when you don't ride the waves. Yes? Consciousness requires clarity. There is a voice of God. There is a voice for God in our minds that is always talking to us, telling us that we are unlimited, one with all life, eternal, and literally invulnerable. There's another voice in our minds that we made up that lies to us and tells us we are limited, separate, mortal, and vulnerable. That is the voice of the ego. I was in a prosperity class this week teaching, and I talked about hearing the voice of spirit, and I listen a lot, and I literally hear God talking. I don't remember exactly what I was saying, but one of the people said, "That just sounds too woo-woo," was the response. And my response was, yes, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I don't want it to sound too woo-woo because I don't want to push people away, but I have come to fully know and believe and experience that there is the voice of spirit. I sort of feel it. It's like dripping. It's like just dripping. Right here is where I go. There's just something flowing to and through me all the time. Never is spirit not talking to you. Never are you not being supported. You are always, always, always in the flow of the conversation with God. You are just listening to the louder voice of the ego. You see, it says there is another voice in your mind. The fact that you now know there's two voices is a quantum leap in awakening, because all you thought there was one crazy one. Now you know there's a crazy one and a sane one. There are two voices. There's another voice in our minds, and we made up that lies to us and tells us we are limited. That we made up. Where is that voice from? You made it up. When did you make it up? I don't know. It doesn't matter. The collective we literally made up a voice that you're limited, that you're not good enough, that there's something wrong with you, that you're separate from God. The collective made up that voice, and that voice got louder and louder, and they just kept banging that drum. It was complete fake news, but everyone believed it. Everyone believed it because they just kept banging the same drum. And eventually all of us will go, all right, whatever. This must be true because it's been said this many times. This must be true because that's what everybody's saying. The ego's voice is loud, it's painful, it's mean, it's aggressive. If you pause to listen to it for a moment, you will discover that it doesn't even like you. It's not your best friend. It doesn't have your best interest it doesn't have your best interest at heart. Thank you. What it actually is like a parasite. It lives off of your vibration. In order for the ego's voice to stay alive, you must support it. Because as soon as you stop supporting the ego's voice, it literally disappears. So it depends upon your life force, and it depends upon you believing in it. So it does this dance where it beats you up for a while, and then you feel bad, and it comes in and says, oh, I'll take care of you. Come with me. Come do that. Like it literally whips you around from victim to victimizer to hero over and over and over. And it's so familiar that you haven't paused to listen and go, that's crazy. That's crazy. The challenge that we do face in the beginning is that Spirit's voice is softer. It is quieter. It is simpler. It has just an ease and a flow to it. And sometimes we wish it were louder, but listen to this. It doesn't need to be louder because it's not in competition with anything else. You see, get this if you can. Spirit's voice has no competition. We made up the ego's voice that there's another. That doesn't mean the Spirit believes your lie. Just because you believe your lie doesn't mean God does. God has no issue with flowing its peace and its love and its gentle voice to you. And there is no competition for it. You just have to switch the dial, turn the channel on this radio station you've been listening to. It's a practice, it's a practice, it's a practice. And you will become more and more clear as you listen to the voice of God and deny the voice of the ego. The last one, consciousness means being willing to stand in the light. There is a point where, many points, where we choose, where we have to choose, where do I stand today? Will I stand with these people that are disenfranchised and gossiping? Will I stand in the light of Spirit and principle? Where will I stand today? Will I stand in the light when someone else is fighting for their dark spot? Will I stand in the light even when I'm seduced to believe that for a moment? Will I get myself back into what is true, what is true, what is true? Nothing is against me. Nothing is against anyone. Everything is happening for me. Everything is happening for me. I am the light and the love of Spirit, and that's who I'm here to be. And when the voice is fighting in the head, when the argument is in your head and you want to attack someone, that's Moses. I will not attack. I will not attack. Holy Spirit, help me not attack. Holy Spirit, this is the moment. This is the moment. They start in gentle moments. They don't feel gentle because you're really pissed at the person. But trust me, that's much smaller than being nailed on a cross by a bunch of people. Right? So we have little challenges, and that's how we build the muscle. I will stand in the light. And then start to watch and pay attention to who's hanging around you, what's being said, where your feelings seduce, no judgment whatsoever. This is not what we're here for. It's just noticing. I'm being pulled in that direction. Oh, there must be a trend. Just noticing the game and keeping yourself above it. I will stand in the light. Will you practice standing in the light this week? This is the way that the world becomes a better place. It becomes a better place by us choosing to stand in the light, in believing that something is better, in believing in a whole new world, and then being that whole new world. Not waiting for that war to end over there, not waiting for that money or water to flow over there. Right here, right now, I stand in the light, and with the power of my imagination, I see a world that works for everyone. That's an insane thought to the world, but not to us, because we create it with our minds when we stand in the light. When you stand in the light, anything and everything is possible. Take a deep breath. So consciousness requires courage. Courage to be your authentic self and to be your fabulous self. Consciousness requires clarity, to know the voice of God from the voice of ego, and to know what is yours to do and what is not yours to do. And consciousness requires you to stand in the light so that Spirit can use you to create a whole new world. Take a deep breath.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no country. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace.
In this moment, I move into prayer. I let that light flow through me as I stand in it. And together, we meet in the agreement of our divinity. Today, in this moment, we meet in the agreement that we stand in the light and we let Spirit use our imagination to see a brand new world, to see within us our relationships harmonized, happy, to see generosity flowing to and through us, for ourselves, for others, and all around the world. We see with our mind's eye, not from our humanness, but as God sees, a beautiful, beautiful world. A beautiful world that begins with us, within each and every one of us. So I speak this prayer for us, knowing that the world, the inner world in which we live, is harmonized by this prayer. The inner world that we live in is brought together in the name of love. And in this moment, we remember, clearly remember, that God's light is who and what we are. It's all we could ever be. We stand in the knowing of our fabulousness so that we can help others see that in themselves. We stand in the knowing of how beautiful and magnificent we are so that others can know that for ourselves. This is Unity Naples, and this is what we do. We stand in the center of knowing our divinity, shining our light, smiling our smile, and letting God use us. Take a breath. And I'm grateful for the fulfillment of this prayer. I'm so enormously grateful. I release it now into the action of law, knowing that it is done. And together we say, and so it is. Amen.
You may say I'm a dreamer,
Sing along.
but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us, and the world will be as one. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
Sing from your heart.
I hope someday you will join us, and the world will be as one.
Beautiful. Beautiful.